Bean.
Here.
Black. Brown. Searpoy. Crawford. Esslinger. Hoskins. May. Thompson Rader. Washington. Williams. You have a quorum.
Thank you, Adam. Appreciate everyone being here this morning. And as this is the first hearing for this Appropriations Committee, I'll just give the quick reminder for all of us in the audience. Most of you have been here for a while, but if you do testify in front of the committee, don't forget to drop off a witness form. And if you want to submit testimony online, all you need to do is do that ahead of time. And then we do ask that you check in at the committee so that all that will be recorded for the minutes. That being said, we've got one bill in front of this committee, and then I'll turn over the role of chairman to our vice chairman, Senator Luetkemeyer. Senate Bill 748. Senator, if you're ready.
First up is Senate Bill 748. Senator Hough, whenever you are ready.
Thank you, Senator Luetkemeyer, members of the committee. I think, and I was thinking about this the other day, I believe everyone on this committee has been through this previously. I don't think we have any members that this is a new piece of legislation. So hopefully that will help streamline the process a little bit. But Senate Bill 748 is what's commonly referred to as the FRA renewal, which is federal reimbursement allowance. It is a voluntary tax that's paid by hospitals, nursing homes, and pharmacies around the state. Good morning, Senator May. And draws down about $3.7 billion in federal funding, bringing the total of our Medicaid budget associated with this program at almost, depending on the year, almost $4.5 billion. And I don't think I have to remind anyone on the committee that worked for the last several years divvying up our state budget that if we have a $4.5 billion hole in the budget, it's going to cause problems. And I think you saw 3 years ago when we failed to get this done during regular session, we were immediately called in by the governor for a special session to renew this. The only real difference with the legislation that I've filed today is I did not put a sunset on this. I'm sure we'll have plenty of conversation about whether that's the right path or not, but I guess I would say that going through this every year or every 2 years or every 3 years when we know we need to do this, and quite frankly, we do this program better than anyone in the country, it seems to me like something that should just be done and over with and taken care of. So that's how we're going to start, and I'm more than happy to answer at this time any questions from the committee, and then we've got, I assume, a handful of folks who want to testify on behalf of this legislation. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator. I just have one question.
Sure.
I noticed today that the start time of the committee was 8:30 a.m.
You're welcome.
Could we expect that same type of gracious treatment from the chairman for the rest of the session?
I think what I will say is as long as we are progressing along through this committee as needed, I think we can accommodate that.
So
request.
definitely maybe.
That's a definite hard maybe.
Any questions relevant to the bill for the chairman?
Yes.
Senator Bean.
Being relevant to the bill, I had 830 questions, 830. 830 questions.
Yes.
I think that's a great number.
Everyone seems to be enjoying that.
So I really support 830. I just want you
Thank
to
you,
know.
Senator.
Senator Hoskins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for presenting this, Senator.
Sure.
As you described, we did have a lot of debate 2 or 3 years ago on this bill, and the governor actually called us into special session. I know you already said that you deleted the sunset on this, and I know that one of the reasons that I appreciate the sunset is so we can revisit this every 2 to 3 years. I think in the past maybe it's been 2 years and
one
year.
occasionally.
Yes, one occasionally, but I think that it does give us the opportunity to ask questions and hold some feet to the fire when we have a sunset of 2 to 3 years. And as you know, 2 to 3 years ago, one of the main reasons that it did go to special session was because it did not include the pro-life language. And so I'm I'm assuming that this also does not include the pro-life language in your bill.
It does not include anything different than what is enumerated in statute right now, Senator, associated with this program.
Okay. Well, I'm 3 years ago, I was a big advocate for including the pro-life language in the FRA language, and I'll be a big proponent this year. So thank you.
You bet.
Any further questions, Senator Hough? Seeing none, this will conclude the hearing on Senate Bill 7.
Do you want to do anyone who might want to testify in favor of or
Oh.
opposition to? Before we conclude, I'm all for streamlining this. Don't get me wrong, but
Senator, that's a
there's
good point. I'm a
handful of
little,
people
little
here that
rusty,
may
you
have a
know,
vested interest in this.
little rusty at this, shaking off the cobwebs from last session.
First committee out again. Here we go.
So,
But you're in charge.
We're
However you
gonna
wanna do
start
it.
with witnesses in support. Witnesses in support of. Yeah, right. It's just, oh my God. I would now make a motion we go into executive session. All right. First up, Mr. Monses.
I appreciate the era of efficiency in the Senate today. Rob Monses, on behalf of the Missouri Hospital Association, appreciate the chair bringing this forward. This has been reauthorized 16 different times by the Missouri General Assembly. It's been supported broadly by both Republican and Democrat administrations. It was started in the last year Governor Ashcroft administration, and it has generated hundreds of millions of dollars, really billions of dollars for the state. We have deep concerns about the potential for the provider tax to lapse. And, you know, I think as an industry, we're not, we don't take a position on the pro-life language. I think the addition of it to this bill, though, we believe would potentially cause some problems and could throw it into the court system and could create major questions there. I would add that the tax generates, I've got a flyer here that should be in front of you. On the hospital side, it generates $1.27 billion of state GR lookalike, draws down $3 billion in federal matching funds. So all in, that's about $4.3 billion of Medicaid funding. And if you think about it, for the hospitals involved, it'd be like having a tax credit for services provided to the state. So if you're providing $100 worth of service to the state and you're putting up 70% of the, or 30% of those dollars, you don't feel like as a taxpayer that you're getting that $100 in total. You're basically getting the benefit of the 70% match. So, so while it is, and I would say one thing about it is not a voluntary tax. It's in state statute. So every tax entity affected is obligated to pay the tax. We have a voluntary pool that we operate to help certain hospitals that are not at all advantaged by reimbursement under Medicaid. And so we operate that outside of state government. We've worked that out with CMS, and I think our concern is if this gets thrown into the court system, that those arrangements could get called into question, and that could make support for the tax going forward very difficult. I would add that in the last year, really 2 years, the environment for hospitals in the state of Missouri has been very, very difficult. We experienced a number of cost increases related to the COVID situation. Double-digit inflation that's affecting everybody's pocketbooks is having a severe impact on hospitals. The federal support that helped to ameliorate some of those problems has gone away, and so hospitals are exposed to these cost increases now. So we're seeing hospitals in every quarter of the state really struggling to survive, particularly the small rural hospitals that don't have a robust payer mix. They're very much struggling to survive. And I know I've interacted with many of you on the committee that are concerned about hospitals in your area. So we're deeply concerned about this about this getting reauthorized and about the sunset getting extended. We appreciate the chair bringing it forward without a sunset. We're certainly open to conversations on that, as it has always had a sunset. So we, under no illusion, it would make it through the process that way. But we hope the committee. We appreciate working with some speed on this, and we hope the committee and the body will move it forward quickly. Thank you.
Questions for this witness? Senator Crawford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Rob, I mean, I think we've had some offline conversations about some issues in my district with smaller hospitals. And can you just remind me, how many smaller hospitals have we lost in the last few years? Do you have that off the top of your head or close?
So, yeah, so when I've been, this is my 10th session representing the Hospital Association in front of the General Assembly. So in that time, when I started at MHA, we had 152 members. We have 140 members now. There's maybe a couple of hospitals in the urban setting that have closed for different reasons, but the bulk of those are in rural Missouri.
I know you can't tell the future, but what do you think if we didn't get this passed? How many of those what would that 140 go down to? I mean, it would be devastating, I assume.
It would be devastating. I mean, the complication would be, if it doesn't pass, then, you know, there'd be an immediate withhold, I would think, on the part of the governor. And then, you know, you just think about just the hospital portion alone, $1.2 billion of general revenue. I mean, there are on the neighborhood of, what, $3 to $4 billion in monies that's being held back. That I think the state generated through the public health emergency. But that's a one-time situation. So it would be devastating. I mean, and there are minimum conditions of participation that the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid require. So the state's obligated for the drawdown of federal match. They're obligated to match those minimum conditions of participation. So the state has to expend a certain amount. The problem would be all of the disproportionate share hospital payments. 100% of those are funded by our provider tax. Prior to 1992, the state didn't have the funding to match those dollars. That's really what was the impetus behind generating that. Those dollars are still available to us today, and they are critical to rural hospitals, large hospitals, every hospital across the state.
Well, again, I have several small hospitals, but if they close, it's going to be a big burden on the big ones too, because I don't think they can handle they have a hard enough time. Everybody has a hard enough time with employees, and it would be, I agree with you. I think it would be a disaster. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Searpoy.
Good morning, Rob. The thing that concerns me is if we do this pro-life language, I think the fear is we'd be out of compliance with CMS. Is that the thing? What could happen? How does CMS enforce their will? I know we don't like the feds telling us what to do, but this is a federal program. And so what is the range of things that could happen if, could they threaten other Medicaid funding if we're out of compliance?
Yeah, I think the result would be a disallowance, I think is the technical term for it. And the disallowance would mean that all the federal matching funds under Medicaid would go away.
Okay. And so for this,
So we'd be out of compliance, they'd issue a disallowance, and that funding would go away.
so it could threaten our funding for the 23,000 seniors that are that are low income in nursing homes.
And it wouldn't just be the FRA funding. I mean, it would be a disallowance. So all matching dollars under Medicaid would be gone.
And so some of our most vulnerable populations, healthcare could be threatened because of this language, possibly. We don't know that, but it's throwing the dice.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Esslinger.
I remember last time when this conversation was held, and some of the concern about not being able to get this through and finish it up for our state was that our state plan, which is the CMS looks at and approves, would also have to be revised or at least revisited by, obviously, an administration that wouldn't be very friendly to Missouri. I think that is a concern that was brought to me last time, but I don't know if that's still an issue this year. That if there is a change or out of compliance, that there is a reconsideration of your whole state plan.
Yes, I think that issue still exists. And the thing about it is, and it's not the hospital association's thing to say, this pro-life language, if it passes in another setting, that's one issue. Okay. The issue comes in the connection, and there's really there has never been a connection before 2 years ago between the FRA and this language. There was language that, as it started, as I recall, Senator Wieland had some language that he was concerned about. We worked with Senator Wieland to provide language that, frankly, we felt like would keep us in compliance. It was a different set of language that became problematic, that I don't think people felt like was able to be in compliance. I think that was the concern, Senator.
Further questions? Senator Hoskins.
Thank you. Are you aware of other states that have pro-life language in their?
I'm not to suggest that there aren't. I mean, I'm sure that there are other states that have similar types of language. I don't think that it's has passed in the same context as their provider tax. I think that is what is unique about what transpired 2 years ago, and what I sense is an interest in moving forward this year.
I'm gathering some research to find out exactly what other states have done to make sure that we defund Planned Parenthood and make sure that Missouri continues to be a pro-life state. So when I get that information, I'll be glad to share it with you.
You bet. I'd look forward to seeing that. Right. And Senator, we're not in any way belittling or making comment on those strongly held beliefs. I mean, that is the body's decision to make. It is, our concern lies in the connection to this issue. I mean, there's basically, it's a Hammerschmidt type of scenario that would be the concern, that could throw it into the court system, and then the time frame that it would take between working its way through the court system, the September 30 sunset date, which is in current state statute. Those are the things that I think are wild cards that I don't know that it has played out in other states quite that way.
Okay.
But if you find something, we'd be more than happy
Yeah,
to.
I'd be glad to share with you. And I know there's been talk about, Senator Esslinger talked about, with the current administration, they might not be friendly to the pro-life language. And then, obviously, with this bill not having a sunset, my hope is that we have a different administration in 2024, a more pro-life friendly federal administration. And so that's one of my concerns, too, about not having a sunset, is that if we do have a change in D.C. with the president and a president that is more pro-life, that we would not come back and revisit this in order to put more pro-life language in it. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Senator. Thank you.
Any further questions for the witness? Senator Bean.
I'd just like to go back to Senator Crawford in your comments. Rob, you and I have had this conversation, and I hope everybody realizes just how critical this rural hospital situation is. I've had one hospital close in my area. Another one could close at any day. I work in agriculture. We have emergencies, and we had a cardiac emergency a few years ago. Hour and 15 minutes is what it took for us to get to a hospital. That's how critical this is. It was a blood clot. and the person was okay. But people need to realize this is serious. I mean, this is not something we just talk about. It's in the headline. It's serious. Because, like I say, we see accidents once or twice a year on our farm. I don't want to be an hour and 15 minutes out. We need to have our rural hospital systems viable. And like I say, I appreciate your work. And I just wanted to thank you for your comments, Senator, and she's spot on. So
Thank you, Senator.
Any further questions for witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Please remember to leave a witness form. Next witness in support of Senate Bill 748.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is David Overfelt, and I'm appearing on behalf of Associated Industries of Missouri, the Missouri Retailers Association, and the Missouri Grocers Association, and our provider members. And we just want to go on record for Senate Bill 748.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Next witness in support.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Jorgen Schlemeyer, I'm here on behalf of several groups: Missouri Pharmacy Association, College of Emergency Physicians, Freeman Hospital, Fire Service Alliance, they run ambulance, which is in the bill, Missouri Assisted Living Association, Preferred Family Health. So I just want to make a couple very quick points. One related to Senator Sirpoy's question, and that is language on this bill, and I think his term is exactly correct, is rolling the dice with the renewal. If this language gets attached that we've all been talking about to this bill, and it gets filed in court, and the court does not process this case in as timely as a manner as we need to meet the sunset, any gap in that sunset isn't just risking the revenue between the sunset and when the court makes a determination. It actually sunsets the program, and we have to go back to the feds to renew it. That is a risk, because if they say no, then it doesn't matter what legislation we pass, this tax is gone, and that's a major problem. I also think that the comments of Senator Bean and Senator Crawford on what will this do to rural hospitals, I think we've talked about that. Let me tell you what it will do to every Medicaid provider in the state, not just hospitals, not just ambulances, not just pharmacies, and not just nursing homes. The Medicaid program cannot survive, not those 4 providers, the entire Medicaid program cannot survive without this mechanism. That means all your in-home services probably gone. Every, nursing program for pediatrics, gone. All those programs are probably gone because they cannot withstand the money coming out of their program to try to keep at least some hospitals open, some nursing homes open, and think of all the displacement, all the people in all those nursing homes, some pharmacies open, and some of the ambulance services still running. You're going to have to take money from all those other services, and they're going to be gone too. That's why I think we have so many different providers supporting this, because they know that their funding is also in jeopardy. So with that, and finally, on the Hammerschmidt issue, remember, I keep hearing about this severability clause. Yeah, well, you can have a severability clause, or maybe the federal government, CMS, will say, well, you can't do that, and it just knocks down that portion of the bill. In a Hammerschmidt case, it doesn't knock down just that part of the bill. It takes the entire bill down. And so you would have to come back and pass another bill. And if the court did not process that Hammerschmidt case in time for the September 30 sunset, then, like I said before, you don't get to hit the redo button. It's just done. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I support the bill.
Senator Hoskins.
Thank you for your doom and gloom comments.
Yeah, you're welcome. But it's only doom and gloom if you put the language on. It's not doom and gloom if you don't.
Well, I guess I would disagree. Do all states have an FRA?
That I don't know. But
Yeah, they don't. They don't. And so are all states have some form of Medicaid. I mean, what you've described is doom and gloom. Hey, if this doesn't pass, or this passes with the pro-life language on it, we're going to lose out on whatever this is, $4.27 billion. Well,
Billions.
I disagree. We've gone from a budget of $27 billion 5 years ago to a budget of $52 billion in the current year. So we've increased spending by, what is that, $26 billion? I mean,
23.
Yeah, $23 billion over the last 5 years. And so what I'm going to focus on this year in appropriations is finding how we can reduce spending. I don't think that we have a revenue problem here in the state of Missouri. I think we have a spending problem. We're spending way too much. We're spending money that we don't have. And so I know you described a situation of what you believe is doom and gloom, but other states do not have FRA, and they still have a Medicaid program. But what you described is, hey, if we don't pass this, we will not have a Medicaid program at all. And I think that's factually incorrect. So thank you.
Further questions for the witness? Senator Rader.
I have a question, but not for the witness. If I may ask Senator Hoskins, because I'm hearing so many numbers over the past few months. I just want to confirm, when we talk about how much our budget is greater this year than all the other years,
Yes.
and I get that, but isn't the majority of that addition, isn't that the federal funding that came down, that we allocated, that we gave out? That, I mean, that was an unusual influx of funding that then we allocated. Am I not right? Like we're not spending more. We're not spending more as a state. Like we haven't increased the budget all that amount.
Well,
Am I right?
No,
mean,
I guess I would disagree. I would say that we are spending a record amount of general revenue as well. I think that would be accurate. Is a lot of that money coming down from the feds? Yes, it is. And I've always said that, hey, the one-time money that the feds are sending to us needs to be on one-time expenses. And what I'm afraid of, and I'm going to do some additional research, is that we've used one-time money for ongoing operating expenses. And so then when that one-time money is gone, what I'm afraid is this body, there's going to be advocates in this body that say, hey, we need to raise taxes in order to fund those gaps. And so
gotcha. And that's what I mean, the one-time funding, I guess, is what I should have called it. And I think we are way too red of a body to start raising taxes. That's not going to happen.
I would agree, but the pressure will be on.
And that's kind of more, that's kind of doom and gloom talking, but the sky's falling when it's not. But I just wanted to clarify that, because in my mind I keep hearing all of these huge numbers.
Right.
And it was one-time spending, and so I just wanted to.
Yeah. So
make sure we
like I
were-
said, I think we have a record amount of general revenue that we are spending, and we have a record amount of one-time federal funds, and you name the acronym of different programs that the feds have sent down to us. And I fear that we've used some of that federal one-time funding for ongoing expenses, and that's a big concern for me, because I definitely do not want to raise taxes, and I'm afraid that that's where this body is headed, because we are going to get every group, agency, and I'm sure they all have worthy causes, coming back in and saying, well, yeah, 5 years ago we were funded at $200 million, and then over the last 5 years we've been funded at $500 million, and now I know that
gotcha.
one-time funding was from the feds is gone, but
I hear you, and that's
Yeah.
and it clarified it for me, so
Right.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Senator, and
Thank you, Senator.
Mr. Chairman.
Further questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Next witness in support.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Nikki Strong here on behalf of Missouri Healthcare Association. So I want to talk just specifically about the impact this would have on our nursing homes. So our nursing homes have nearly 25,000 seniors and vulnerable people in them. The FRA mechanism funds at least 40% of our Medicaid rate, and approximately 35 to 40% of the rest of the Medicaid rate is federal match dollars. State general revenue only accounts for approximately 13 to 15% of our Medicaid rate. If this does not renew, we'll be out of business. There will not be a single nursing home that will be able to stay open. And the trickle-down effect of that to our hospitals, for one, because they won't be able to discharge these very, very vulnerable residents, they won't have anywhere to put them, is traumatic. The sunset is September 30th. If we don't pass this soon, we go into special session. If we don't have it passed by June 30th, we could ask the governor, but I'm pretty sure he's going to be forced to withhold. If one penny is withheld from our nursing homes, I can tell you many will close. We've had 22 close in the past couple years, and I have many. I'm fielding calls daily from multiple facilities across the state, especially in the rural areas, that they're on the brink of closure again and just holding on by the skin of their teeth. Our Medicaid rate itself is significantly underfunded based on our cost reports that are filed with the state, based on our plan amendment. I won't get into that. That's a different conversation. But without this funding, we're done, period. We can't stay in business. I don't know where the 25 approximate thousand seniors and vulnerable people in our facilities are going to go. We'll lose approximately that many staff, employees will have to go somewhere else. This is devastating to our industry. So I ask that you please pass this clean without any questionable amendments for the sake of our most vulnerable people in the state. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the witness? Senator Crawford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Nikki. Thank you for answering the question before I ask it about the nursing homes. These people are going to have nowhere to go but the hospitals, or maybe back out on the street or back to families. Or you think any of them will die?
Well, yeah, I mean, where are they going to go? Because the hospitals are going to close. I mean, this isn't just us. I mean, the hospitals are going to close, so they can't go to the hospital. Or let's talk about your emergency services. When someone goes and needs an ambulance, to Senator Bean's point, with a blood clot, you don't have ambulance services that can go and pick up that person and get them anywhere.
So I'm just trying to make a point that we have pro-life on both ends of the spectrum, the unborn and the elderly
Absolutely.
population.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can just talk about one without talking about the other, because I think it could be devastating to the older population, of which I'm quickly becoming one of them. Thank you, Nikki.
Thank you.
Further questions for the witness? Senator Bean.
Yeah, Nikki, I appreciate your comments. And I was in a nursing home just about 3 weeks ago, and they're losing money every day, and they're full. And like I said, where do they go?
Yep.
And going back to personal experience here, I've got a family member that's going to need to go to a facility soon, and it's pretty scary. And they weren't staffed. They've got that problem. So a lot of problems out there that we sure don't want to disrupt. So appreciate your comments.
Absolutely.
Senator May.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, it's devastating for nursing homes to close. One just closed in the urban area
Yes.
in my district, and trying to place 200 individuals was very hard for the state and for that nursing home.
Yes.
And for the employees
Yes.
who couldn't, right before Christmas, they could not make payroll to those individuals. So it was devastating. And families couldn't absorb their people, because a lot of them didn't have families that could absorb them, and some of them had mental health issues that that people couldn't absorb. So it is a crisis, and we do have to look at the totality of life that we're looking at.
Yes, I agree, and I'm very familiar with that situation right before Christmas, working throughout the weekend.
Yes.
It was very tragic. And if you take that times 496, because that's how many Medicaid facilities we have out there, that's the number of facilities we'll be dealing with. It'll be devastating.
Further questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
And I also have testimony and support from the Missouri Society of Anesthesiologists, Missouri College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, and Health Forward Foundation, too.
Perfect, thank you so much. Further witnesses in support?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Leanne Chilton. I represent BJC Healthcare, and we obviously support the extension of the provider tax. Not only were the comments already articulated by my colleagues, so I'm not going to repeat them, but the fact is the state has become reliant on the provider tax. Senator Hoskins asked a very good question, that do all states have a provider tax? No, most do. But that means that those states that don't are paying general revenue to get that federal match. So that's how it's compensated. So if we don't have the provider tax, then that delta would be taken away, and the state would have to come up with that amount in order to get that federal match. I am concerned about the September 30th date. That's right around the corner. It's going to happen before we know it. So I urge you to please pass the provider tax unencumbered by anything, so that we can keep going in Missouri the way we have since Governor Ashcroft.
Questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Further witnesses in support?
Senator.
How are you?
Good. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Trent Ford. I'm a registered lobbyist for the Ambulance District Association of Missouri, and we like this bill.
Thank you. Any questions for this witness?
I didn't think there'd be any.
Thank you for your testimony. Further witnesses in support?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Chance Hepla. I'm here on behalf of Cox Health, and we just want to be on the record of support of SB 748.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Further witnesses in support?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Brent Tempill here on behalf of Mosaic Life Care, St. Joe, Missouri, but also the Missouri Ambulance Association, which are predominantly ambulance districts. We have our own ground ambulance FRA. We were the first in the United States to have an FRA for ground ambulance. I think that's increased a little bit. It is a huge revenue generator for ground ambulance.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Further witnesses in support?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Bill Bates. I represent Leading Age Missouri, which is the membership association for largely nonprofit senior living and healthcare organizations. We have members, I believe, in every one of your districts. We are here in support of Senate Bill 748 because, for the reasons you've already heard from other witnesses, it would be absolutely catastrophic for our members if certainly the portion devoted to nursing homes was not renewed, because it will crater the Medicaid system as we know it, supporting seniors in all of our member communities. Happy to stand for questions. We're in support of the bill as a clean bill.
Any questions for the witness?
Thank you.
None, thank you for your testimony. Further witnesses in support?
Mr. Chairman, David Winton here on behalf of the Missouri Association of Rural Health Clinics, as well as Rankin Jordan Pediatric Hospital. I want to go on record in support of the legislation. Appreciate the committee's time.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Further witnesses in support?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Justin Alferman, representing SSM Health. We would like to go on record in support of Senate Bill 748.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions for the witness? Seeing none. Further witnesses?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Will Mars on behalf of Mercy. I just want to go on record in support.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Further witnesses in support?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Heidi Geis-Bueller-Sutherland here on behalf of the Missouri Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Also in support, obviously, our hospital members care a lot about this bill, and businesses all around the state care a lot about this bill, because people want to work in a place where they have access to health care and hospitals.
Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Further witnesses in support?
Mr. Chair, Brian Colby with the Missouri Budget Project. We're a nonprofit, nonpartisan fiscal analysis organization. We're going on record in favor of this. If we don't get these critical funds, they're kind of GR lookalike funds, and we still maintain a Medicaid program, these funds will have to come from somewhere else. K through 12, public safety, anywhere else in the budget that relies on general revenue. It's a critical foundation for our budget. We hope we get this bill passed early so our budgeteers can build a budget and go on with the state's work. I'll stop there.
Senator Hoskins.
Thank you. You mentioned that it would have to come from general revenue. Are you aware of the increase in general revenue, the record-breaking general revenue that we've had this year versus 5 years ago?
I am.
Okay. All right. So I don't know what the latest balance is on the bottom line, and I'm not going to put anybody on the spot to tell me that right off the top of their head. But we've had, I don't know, $3, $4, $5, $6 billion that have been sitting on the bottom line, and so when we talk about, we'll have to cut $100 million from here, it sounds like we have a lot of money on the bottom line that we could use that for in general revenue to make up any shortfalls. Should we pass a tax cut or there's lots of different programs that we don't fully match in order to get the federal match. So I think your analysis of, hey, if we don't pass some of this FRA tax, we're going to have to use general revenue, and we just don't have the general revenue. I think that analysis is flawed. My understanding is that we have billions of dollars on on the bottom line.
Well, I'd push back a little bit, Senator. We've gone through an extraordinary period with the public health emergency. And so we've had augmented federal funds, greater federal funds than we've ever had coming to the state. And that's kind of built out these budgets that we've had. And so we've been able to set aside general revenue because of the extra federal funds. Those are going away. The extra funding for Medicaid, the extra funding for expansion of Medicaid.
Are you saying that we've been using one-time funds
No,
for
sir.
ongoing expenses?
No, sir. No, sir. You've actually been doing a great job of spending one-time funds on certain things. But those federal funds, the augmented federal funds, specifically the ones that came to Medicaid, we've been getting a higher match during the public health emergency. We've been able to set the general revenue that was offset by the federal funds aside. That's built out our surpluses. But those federal funds are going back to normal. So we won't have the ability to offset general revenue with those. And so going forward with the budget, I don't think we'll see this, the buildup of federal, or rather general revenue that's being offset by federal funds. We're going to have to participate like we had in previous years. So I think we've kind of gone through a strange period of time. We're going back to normal, and without the general revenue lookalike dollars that come in through provider tax, we would definitely have to come up with general revenue funds to fill the gap.
I guess where I would disagree with you is, okay, if we've been using some of these Fed match dollars and one-time funds to these general revenue lookalike funds, in my opinion, we've not been taking that general revenue and setting it aside for a later date. We've been spending a lot of that general revenue. And so when those one-time funds are up from the feds, there are not as much general revenue that we've been setting aside to meet those ongoing expenses. And so that's where my concern is. And so, thank you.
Yes, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You indicated these are not one-time funds, correct? Is the FRA tax, these are not one-time funds, correct?
No, I would not characterize them as one-time funds. They're ongoing.
What percentage of this tax income funds our Medicaid program?
It's significant. I don't know if I know the exact percentage. 45%.
And that includes what we allocate plus the federal match, correct?
Yeah, I think the way I would characterize it, I think that the fiscal note reads, and I'll let the chairman and the sponsor sitting next to me correct me, but I think it's $1.45 billion in provider taxes, general revenue lookalike, that brings down the match that makes about $4.4 billion. So if these funds did not come in, if the provider tax revenues did not come in, we would have to, if we maintained a Medicaid program, replace that with general revenue of $1.45 billion.
And while my wonderful colleague from Johnson County indicated we have billions, as someone who is an expert with our budget, we definitely don't have as much surplus as we have had in the past, correct?
Senator, you are correct. I mean, if we were to use up the surplus that we have, it's roughly, I think, $4 billion.
This would take all of that, correct?
It would be evaporated within about 2.5 years, yeah.
So it definitely wouldn't help us do things like, I don't know, increase teacher pay, fully fund the education formula, provide much needed Medicaid services throughout the state, especially in our rural communities, correct?
Senator, I think every program in the state budget that relies on general revenue will be in distress if we do not pass this bill.
Thank you.
Further questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Further witnesses in support?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and committee. Dallas Paul and Children's Mercy, Kansas City. Just would like to register our support.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Further witnesses in support of Senate Bill 748? Further witnesses in support? Seeing none, witnesses in opposition to Senate Bill 748?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, Susan Klein, representing Missouri Right to Life, here to go on record in opposition to Senate Bill 748. Obviously, our opposition is dealing with the pro-life language. We're back here after the 2021 battle, and we do not oppose keeping hospitals open or nursing homes or any of that. What we do oppose is sacrificing innocent babies in order to do that. We don't believe that that is obviously what care for the vulnerable is. So while before 2020, we were able to protect pro-life babies and with pro-life language in our budget bills. Obviously, that changed in June of 2020 when the Missouri Supreme Court said that you can no longer put pro-life protective language in the budget bills, that you had to do it in statute. Every time we have gone to court on this, the court, whether it's Missouri Supreme Court or the circuit court judges in Cole County, have said, if you want to change the way the program works, then you need to put the language in statute. We're asking for you to put the language on this bill and put it in statute to protect lives from the beginning, from the unborn, the preborn, that are looking for your support and your protection to make sure that money is not given to the largest abortion provider in the United States. And they are, whether they're, obviously Missouri has banned abortion, except for the life of the mother. But if you look at Planned Parenthood, they are affiliated and associated with the largest abortion provider in the United States. They take the most lives through abortion and all 9 months of pregnancy. So we're asking for you to stop funding Planned Parenthood in our state that sends either abortionists into Illinois or to Kansas or other states, refers for abortions. If you've seen the latest video, Planned Parenthood is undermining parental authority. And so I just ask that you, Missouri has always been a leader in the United States in protecting life. And we don't back down from that fight when it comes to protecting these babies. And the Biden administration has looked at every way possible to try to take these lives. And I don't believe that we should back down from the Biden administration in protecting babies. So we're asking for pro-life protective language. It's in my testimony. We ask that you protect these preborn babies and hold Planned Parenthood accountable for what they're doing. So we would just ask once again that you protect pro-life, put pro-life protective language in the FRA as you move it forward. Protect life from the beginning, from the unborn to the end of life. And so we ask for that language in this bill. And Missourians across the state are looking to your leadership.
Thank you. We'll get to everybody's questions, I promise. Chairman's choice, though. I get to go first, I think. So, Ms. Klein, thank you for being here today. Appreciate it. Just a couple of questions. If the General Assembly were to pass a standalone pro-life bill that reflects the language that's in your testimony, would that change MRL's position on whether it has to be attached to this particular piece of legislation?
We tried that in 2021.
I'm asking for you to engage in a hypothetical with me. I'm saying, let's just say that the Missouri General Assembly passes, TAFP sends to the governor's desk a clean pro-life bill that has the language that you're advocating for sitting on the governor's desk, and the next bill to come up on the floor is the FRA. Would MRL's position be that it would be acceptable for the General Assembly to pass a clean FRA if that were to occur? Because
obviously, we don't know if the governor would sign that.
Do you believe the governor, the Republican governor of Missouri, would veto that language?
I don't know what the governor would do. Okay. The governor is obviously supportive of the FRA. And I would hope that he would support that language, but no, we're not going to support the FRA without pro-life language on it, without having the other language in statute.
Okay, so let me change my hypothetical for a second here. What if we passed and TAFP'd the pro-life language that you're referencing in your testimony, and we had an emergency clause on it, and the governor signed it into law in a signing ceremony that same day, and we came back the next day on the floor, and we had a clean FRA bill? would MRL support a clean FRA bill at that point?
I'm interested in talking about that.
'Cause, I mean, it would be in,
if we
it'd be
have
in
it
statute at that point.
I would be open to looking at that, but I'm not going to give an absolute, this is where we are right now, because I don't know if that's going to happen. It's hypothetical, as you said.
I understand. So, do you share any of the concerns of the other witnesses that if these two pieces of legislation are tied together, that it could result in us not having a renewal of the FRA? Does MRL acknowledge that that is a possibility, that's a realistic possibility?
I understand what the other witnesses have said. I also understand that we're talking about protecting vulnerable people.
Sure.
And you can't exclude one set of vulnerable people, these innocent babies that are looking for our protection.
Sure.
So I don't think you have to. I don't think you have to leave keep hospitals open and sacrifice babies
And I'm not
in the process of that.
And I'm not suggesting it's an either or. In fact, my hypothetical before about having it be two separate bills was specifically to avoid the issue that a lot of the witnesses have testified on today, which I think we can all agree if hospitals shut down in rural Missouri, if nursing homes close, there will be a loss of innocent human life on that end of the spectrum as well.
And if this passes without the pro-life protective language, then innocent lives are lost at the beginning of life.
That's the reason for my original hypothetical, because what I'm saying is that isn't there a world in which you get both of those things? You avoid the possibility of a hospital shutting down, you avoid the possibility of a nursing home shutting down, and at the same time, we protect innocent human life at conception.
And we've had opportunity to do that all the way from 2021 when a special committee was formed to come up with either putting rules in place or passing statute, and we haven't done that yet. So at this point in time, I don't see that we are moving forward with protecting the unborn babies, and Missouri Right to Life doesn't see that either. So, so hypothetically,
Yep.
We're dealing with hypothetical right now.
Okay, sure.
But we are dealing with the actual fact that unborn babies' lives will be lost without the pro-life language.
Senator Arthur.
Thank you for clarifying that you don't oppose hospitals staying open. That's helpful. Thank you for that. We keep hearing from you about unborn lives. Remind me, in Missouri, is abortion legal?
Abortion is banned in Missouri except for the life of the mother or an emergency exception.
So-
However, Planned Parenthoods are affiliates and associates of the national organization.
So what kind of services does Planned Parenthood provide in Missouri specifically and get reimbursed for? Things like birth control, cancer screenings, STI testing. Which of those healthcare services do you oppose? Because that's what they're allowed to do in Missouri. Those are the only services that they provide Missourians. So which of those services do you oppose?
They are affiliates of the largest abortion provider in the United States.
Abortion is not legal in Missouri. You just said that, right? So abortion is not taking place in Missouri except in rare exceptions.
But the Planned Parenthoods are affiliates and associates of the largest abortion provider in the United States.
That Medicaid funding does not go to those services in Missouri. So Missouri taxpayer dollars are not funding those services.
Obviously, we've seen in the videos that Planned Parenthood is undermining parental authority and referring people that are taking minors to these abortion clinics, these Planned Parenthood clinics, and undermining Missouri law in referring them to taking a minor across state lines for an abortion.
I don't spend my time on the dark web, so I don't know the videos that you're referring to. But I will say, in Missouri, abortion is not legal. The services that this one provider, healthcare provider that you're targeting, provide services in rural parts of the state, all across the state, because there is a lack of access to healthcare across our state. And they feel a need for things like cancer screenings. And so we can talk about whether or not we want to fund cancer screenings or STI testing or birth control, and we may have a different opinion on that. But my point is, you are jeopardizing $4 billion that would keep other vulnerable populations alive on an issue that does not exist in Missouri. Thank you.
Senator Washington.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hi, friend.
Hi, Senator.
I want to first follow up on Senator Arthur with the Planned Parenthood funding. Can you identify which line item in our budget funds Planned Parenthood?
Obviously, Senator, we're talking about the line item of the FRA. I don't
Does
have
it
that. I
say
don't have the
anything
number.
in there? So how much money did we allocate specifically to Planned Parenthood?
I would have to have the budget.
I'll help you.
Before me.
0. So what we're really talking about here, because I always want to remind you that folks are listening, is a Medicaid recipient's ability to go to Planned Parenthood for services other than abortion. Isn't that correct?
Senator, I'm talking about putting pro-life protective language in the FRA to make sure that
I want you
we're
to
not-
put your talking points away and use your thinker. Are we not talking about folks who receive Medicaid and their choice to go to Planned Parenthood? Because that's the only way Planned Parenthood gets money from us, right? Is when we reimburse them for services already provided, correct?
Senator, I'm talking about.
I don't
using
care what you're
public
talking about.
dollars
I'm
to go
asking
to
your question.
Abortion affiliates.
All right, great you said that. So people get TANF and they get, I still call it AFDC, but if I'm on welfare, I can get money to spend pretty much how I want, right? Are you familiar with that? Because you about pro-life, and those are the people that are most vulnerable. Are you familiar with that process?
Senator, I'm here to work to protect.
You can keep saying that, and you can keep using your talking points, but at the end of the day, if we are not banning BP Amico from being in our state, when people can use their welfare to pay for gas, and BP Amico has killed people all around the world, including people still suffering in New Orleans, then we can't ban Planned Parenthood for what they do outside of Missouri. If we won't ban gun manufacturers and gun sellers in the state of Missouri who have been proven to kill children, not only in our state and other states, then we cannot ban Planned Parenthood because of what they do outside of Missouri. If we allow McDonald's to sell hot coffee in Missouri, and it's been proven that their hot coffee can burn an 84-year-old woman and they have to pay her $84 million, then we cannot ban Planned Parenthood for what they do outside of Missouri. And now I want to talk about you and pro-life, because I really wish you all would stop saying that and saying pro-birth. What number are we in America? Where does the Missouri rank in terms of maternal mortality?
I don't have that information.
But you should, because you're pro-life and you're about pro-birth, and the mother who's birthing, because we ain't counting just because you're a mother, we're counting your death as a result of childbirth, and that we are number 44, and we are the only state last year whose numbers rose. So what you want us to do is prevent folks from having Medicaid to be able to provide, to get services. I'm not sure where you live. We go through this all the time, me and you. But my family in Saline County, they ain't got no hospital. They don't have no urgent care or anything. And my grandmother's cousin may have died simply because there's not an ambulance service that comes to Blacksburg, Missouri. And what you want me to do is take out Kansas City, St. Louis, Columbia, and Springfield. We got it. We gonna take care of our people because we got the resources. But you want people in Senator Hoskins' district or Senator Black's district to be restricted from being able to get medical services because without Medicaid, we don't have a lot of service providers. You mentioned the vulnerable. Missouri also ranks in the top 10 of infant mortality, and going to Planned Parenthood and being screened to see whether or not I have some issues with respect to my pregnancy because I don't have access to another place is something that you want to prevent, all in the name of saying pro-life. When we don't have abortions. How many abortions were held in Missouri last year?
0.
You not on stand.
Senator, I come back to using public dollars to fund
How
an
many
abortion
abortions were
provider
handled?
In
How many
the
abortions do we
largest
have?
Abortion provider in the United
Okay,
States.
so you will agree that we have had 0 abortions
We have had
since we
0.
approved this 2 years ago when you tried to block it.
We have had 0, but we also
Thank
have
you.
spent
No
millions
further
of
questions.
dollars to Planned Parenthood to fund abortion providers.
Senator May, I think, was up next. Senator May.
Yes. Good morning. Thank you.
Good morning, Senator.
So I'm concerned about, first of all, an individual's right, their individual rights to choose what they want to do. Planned Parenthood couldn't exist if an individual didn't choose to go there. So, I am a firm believer in an individual's right under the Constitution to make whatever choice they want to make and not be influenced by your opinion or your rights or your faith, because whatever you believe should not infringe on what I believe, whether your faith or whatever. We might not be the same faith. We might not be whatever. How you was raised is different from how I was raised. The choices I make are different from the choices you make. So I used to sit on the infant mortality, prenatal infant mortality in Missouri when I first came to the Capitol. It grieved me so bad that Missouri was doing nothing. And I never heard pro-life or anybody address it at all. And in 2022, 69,453 babies died. They just died because of poor health care when it comes to prenatal with mothers. A large percentage of that was African American babies in poor communities also, and in rural areas as well. So when we're talking about, life and you're talking about babies, let's talk about the babies trying to get out of the womb too. Let's just be holistic about it. I'm not offended by your perspective on what you believe. I'm just don't agree that it should be imposed on everybody else, because each individual person has their God-given right to believe what they want to believe, and God gave them that right because he said whosoever will, let them come. So he give you the right to go straight to hell if you wanted to, or go to heaven. That's the right. And this, to me, when you have guns in my community that have killed more children than anything, we have meetings with mothers that fill large churches that have lost their children to gun violence. I haven't seen anybody at any of those meetings, because you're not pro-life. You're pro-birth. And to me, this is a political argument. And it has nothing to do with the care of people who are trying to bring children into the world. Because first of all, they cut everything that can help a poor person. To me, the Bible said, feed the poor. They cut all the services. Women, infant, and children, the WIC program, they cut it to help the poor people who have babies. They can't afford, milk and things like that. When I was here, the first year they attacked TANF. They cut it. Every year when I started in 2010. So the hypocrisy of the argument is what bothers me. And so when you say pro-life, your definition of it is very narrow. All I'm asking you to do is broaden that definition. Broaden it. That's all I'm asking. And whether it pertains to FRA, whether it pertains to other legislation in statute, don't just care about that one thing. Broaden your definition of life.
Senator, I would just add to what you say is I understand and I hear what you're saying. And I absolutely believe that we should care about all people. But we have to care about the babies and these babies that need protection. And I also believe that Missourians have the right as well to ask not to spend our public dollars to go to a facility that is the largest abortion provider in the country.
But what you're failing to realize is every Missourian pays taxes, and that one Missourian that decides to use Planned Parenthood because they may not have health care insurance, they may not have any other hospital or whatever to go to. Because I remember in my community where I lived at, in the city, in the urban area, it was the only place that young girls can go get OBGYN care, all of that, birth control, STD, all of those treatments. So, and then the hospitals wasn't taking them. And especially when you talk about and don't even let me get into the effects of health care for African American women all over the country. So, pardon me if I'm not, an individual has the right to choose what they want to do. And you cannot oppose your faith-based ideology on individuals. If you want to, just do what the Great Commission says and go ye into all the world and preach the gospel. Because if you preach the gospel and give them the word, then you give them the choice to either defy God or go with God. That's what you give them the choice, not a dictatorship, because that's not what it is.
But we're also called to protect these unborn babies.
No, you're not. No, we're not all called to do that. We're not all called to do that. We're not all called to do that. I don't remember Jesus preaching anything about abortion. Not at all. He said, feed the hungry. If I'm thirsty, give me a drink of
He also knew us
water.
before we were formed.
He said, before we were formed in the womb, I knew thee. And before I brought thee forth, I ordained thee a prophet unto the earth. That's right. He knew us in the womb.
Right.
That still didn't tell us, that still didn't say he was advocating for what you're advocating for.
Their protection.
No.
That's what we're fighting for.
Their protection. Are you going to, if a woman comes to you and says that, okay, you don't want me to have an abortion since you denied my right to abortion, I'm going to lay my child on your doorstep and let you take care of them. See, the state don't want to take care of them. Will you?
Well, I know that there are great pro-life programs, alternatives to abortion, Show Me Healthy Babies, the bill that y'all just recently passed dealing with taking care of women for a year after, the end of a pregnancy. So there are lots of programs out there.
Taking care of people for a year, honey, this is a longer than a year. A life longer than a year. So, thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, current chair at the moment, chair on the stand. I wasn't in here. I was in another committee hearing for another issue that I needed to deal with. So, good to see you.
Good to see
I
you,
was
Senator.
listening and kind of came in on the tail end, so I don't want to jump in anything that's been said already. I guess my question would be, and again, I didn't bring my Bible to the hearing, so I don't think I'll have any scriptures for you. And I'm not a minister or a pastor and don't really want to be one. Is this basically a situation where we're going to deceive the public to, I guess, infringe on a process that's been happening for a very, very long time and make it about an issue that it's really not about? Or do you have a solution on how we get this done without, again, making an issue that's not really an issue? And I'll go a little deeper. How many years have we passed this provider tax in the state of Missouri? I mean, it's only term limits, so I'm sure there's only a few people. Leanne probably knows. How many years?
It's been renewed over 16 times.
Okay, so it's been renewed over 16 times. How many years have you been working in this building or advocating for pro-life issues?
Quite a few years. I have to count them up. I don't remember off the top of my head.
So in previous...
But I come back to, Senator, In June of 2020, before that, we were able to put pro-life protective language in the budget bills that guided and gave boundaries to these programs. In June of 2020, the Missouri Supreme Court said that we could no longer put that language in the budget. So we've been asking for that to go into statute since January of 2021.
But
And
how is that-
obviously dealing with the
but
language.
How is that mutually exclusive to the fact for the past 16 times we have passed the FRA and this has never been an issue? I understand what you're referring to back to 2020, but if the state upheld the Supreme Court ruling not to fund abortion in the state of Missouri, then what else do you have to do?
Actually, the court has ruled that you could not do that in a budget bill.
And it has not been
It's
done.
been tried multiple times.
And it has not been done.
What hasn't been done?
There has not been any funding towards abortion in the state
There
budget.
has been money going to the largest abortion provider in the United States.
For
and their
what's-
affiliates in the state of Missouri.
So are they doing abortions in the alley?
Their abortion is illegal in the state of Missouri except for life of the mother and emergency. But that does not say that they don't undermine our laws in parental authority or referring or paying for travel. That's been tried in multiple areas of our state as well with some of these dollars.
But they're not
so
providing-
just clarifying that that our public dollars is going to we're not going to put one area of the spectrum at risk. We're going to protect life from the beginning to the end.
Okay. So, look, I get what you're trying to do, and I understand it, but you're like really just talking around me completely. I asked you a simple question. Do they provide abortion in the state of Missouri? You said no. So therefore, they do not provide abortion services. So if they are upholding the law, the ruling of the Supreme Court, why are you here?
Senator, I'm asking for pro-life protective language to be put in the FRA, in statute, to protect our public dollars to not be used to go to the largest abortion provider in the United States. That is affiliated in Missouri. The Planned Parenthoods of Missouri are affiliated and associated with Planned Parenthood at the national level. We're asking for simple one-sentence pro-life protective language.
But what will it do?
It will ensure that that money is not used to go to an abortion affiliate.
So you're basically saying the law is only being upheld with your stamp of approval to prove to you that the law has been upheld, even though it's being upheld. I mean, is this just like a litmus test for you, or is this really about the law? Because what I'm taking from this is, and you talked about another thing, I'm the only person on this committee who's a new parent. I have a 10-month-old son, and I can tell you right now, I don't know no programs that's paying the $2,000 a month I pay for childcare. So I want you to get that information from me because I need it. I just think, again, my biggest concern with all of this is it's not, what you're doing is not factual. And I understand that you're trying to hijack this process to corner colleagues of mine to have to make a decision on an issue that's not really an issue. And I really would be happy if you just said that and we move forward. But this isn't about pro-life. And I really get frustrated when people talk about pro-life, but again, there's no programs out there that's helping families support and take care of their children. I mean, it's very expensive to raise a child, and there's folks in here that have done it. I'm going through it. And again, I couldn't imagine being in a situation, even with Planned Parenthood, for example, and the black males are subject to prostate cancer at a young age. So they do provide screenings for prostate cancer. And I'm sure they talked about other services that they do provide. And a lot of that population are people who are underinsured and uninsured. So I guess I would ask you, what would be the solution? Where does that population of people go if they do need services?
Senator, our Department of Health has multiple facilities across the state, as there are also federally qualified health centers that people can go to. And just to go on the record,
I'm on the board for I'm on the board for a
respectfully, I
federally qualified health center, and I can tell you right now, there are services that Planned Parenthood provide that we do not. So you can't go to a federally qualified health center for all of those services.
I would recommend that you talk to the Department of Health.
You know, there are federal, so if there were a constituent that said they needed help, I would just tell them, I recommend you talk to the Department of Health. What the hell does that mean? Who do you talk to? Who do you go to? Who do you call? Who do you engage with? How do you get help? That's the biggest problem with all of this. We walk in this room and we give this vague explanation for how we do our job. Nobody's getting into details. If you told me this is the process on how we take care of people, how we support families, how we address our budget, all you're saying is, well, Senator, you know, if we put protective language, we'll make sure there's no abortion. What about every other fucking issue in the state?
Senator.
What about every other issue? You care about one issue, and that one issue, in my opinion, has infringed on the process and democracy because you use this vague process. And there's so many politicians that are so damn weak, that they empower you to feel like you're telling the truth, and you're not. You're not. And I'm not trying to be mean or be rude to you, but at some point, there got to be somebody who don't care about being reelected that tells the truth, and that don't care about running for higher office that tells the truth. I'm looking at this form right here. It says hospitals pay an assessment of $1.27 billion. The state receives and spends an assessment of $1.2 billion, and the state earns a federal match of $2.9 billion. So that means that this is money coming into our state that can help the Department of Health, help people who don't know how to really get to the person at the Department of Health, because they're counting on safety net agencies that are in their community that allows them to create opportunities of access to be able to take care of issues that they have, whether it's a reproductive health issue or as something as complicated as a 40-year-old man who needs to get tested because he is likely to get prostate cancer. Again, you know, we have to stop allowing people like you to hijack the process. This has been done 16 times, and not one time have you held anybody to the same standard that you're holding us to. This is the first time since 2020, and you used the cover of the Supreme Court to say, well, I'm going to hold you guys accountable, but it's never been done before. It's never been done before. So why all of a sudden you want to hold us to a standard that no other lawmaker has been held to who has identified either as pro-life or pro-choice in the past? What is different about this process? I understand the Supreme Court ruling, but what is different about this process? The Supreme Court said, don't fund abortions. We understand by law you can't fund an abortion in the state of Missouri. So why would we hijack the provider tax and say, let's add language that we have never added in the past 16 times?
The Supreme Court also said, if you want to fix this program, if you want to prevent those dollars from going to abortion providers, then you have to put this language in statute. And you have to put it where the program disperses the money, since you can no longer do it in a budget bill. So that's why we're asking.
Do we have
and it's
language?
the Missouri Supreme Court that has put us in this position.
Do we have language that says the Supreme Court is requiring us as an Appropriations Committee to put this language?
These were comments that were made in the courtroom by the justices.
Do you have it with you?
I don't have it with me.
Okay. So until you find that information and provide it, would you be able to show some deference to this process and allow us to continue to do it like we've done the past 16 times, almost 17 times?
I'm sorry, Missouri Right to Life and Pro-Life Missourians are asking for pro-life protective language on the FRA.
And, okay, that's fine. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Could you get that Supreme Court language to me? And I apologize if I came off rude. You know, minimal sleep and change more diapers than you can count. It just kind of makes you a little grumpy. So my apologies.
Senator Serpoy.
Good morning.
Good morning,
I
Senator.
want to talk about the numbers a little bit. When was that budget bill, the language added to the budget bill? What year was that? Was that 17 or 18? Do you remember? The language that the courts eventually ruled we could not do.
It was added back, I believe, in the 2000s. So I'd have to look back at the specific year.
No, I mean the
was
language
the
that
budget bill?
prohibits funding going to Planned Parenthood. We put it in the budget bill, and then the court, I think they sued immediately. The courts put it on hold. It took a couple of years before they got the ruling that you're referencing, saying we can't do it in the budget bill. Was that in 17 or 18? Do you remember? 17?
I remember the Missouri Supreme Court ruling in 2020.
Sam says it was 17. So between, we passed it in 17. Shortly after that, they got an injunction. So we didn't pay bills, but we saved them up. And then the courts 2 years later ruled that we were in error, and they ordered us to pay those bills. So over 2 years worth of bills. I'm trying to get a handle on what kind of money we're talking about. Because listening to you, I'm assuming we're giving them millions and millions of dollars. Do you know how much money, when we finally paid that over 2 year bill, how much it added up to?
And this is off the top of my head, but the report that I remember that was passed out in that special interim committee was roughly around $1.4 million. I don't have that report.
Well, what I've been told is slightly over $200,000 is how much we paid in arrears.
I believe it was at least $700,000 or $800,000, if
we'll
not more.
verify
But
that.
I don't have the report.
I'll have that ready on the floor, but I think it's something over $200,000. So over 2 years, we paid Planned Parenthood something over $200,000. So we're paying them about $100,000 a year. And do you know how much of that goes to pharmacy? Way more than half of it goes for pharmacy. And so that money doesn't go to any affiliate around the state. That money is going to the pharmaceutical companies to pay for drugs, for birth control. And so in effect, if we do this, low-income people are going to be harder pressed to get birth control, which will add to the problem of abortion, which is kind of counterintuitive and counterproductive. And so that's why I just want everybody to know we're talking about well less probably than $50,000 a year. We're willing to put a $4 billion project or a program in jeopardy for something probably under $50,000 a year. I don't think this is at all about saving babies. It's about Missouri Right to Life having a letter writer. Every year you need a 5-alarm fire to write letters to your supporters and to say that the Missouri legislature is letting us down. Most of us on this panel voted for the heartbeat bill, which is the strongest pro-life language in this nation. And you have the nerve to come here and challenge our pro-life credentials. That is disgusting. And I think it's time we do the right thing here. This has nothing to do with abortion. It has to do with, as Senator Williams said, Planned Parenthood in some communities is doing things that no one else is doing. And it's not abortion now in Missouri. And this funding, I think, is important. And more importantly is, I thought it was 23,000. I hear now it's 25,000 low-income seniors. You say you like people, you support people across the entire spectrum, but yet you're willing to throw the dice and put those nursing home patients, almost all seniors, all low-income, many because they spent down in the nursing home. You're willing to put their lives in jeopardy for probably less than $50,000 a year. It's not about money. This is about a letter writing campaign and getting your members who are the heart of the pro-life movement, but they have no idea of the tactics and the stunts you're pulling in Jeff City. I wish they did. I wish there's a way I could communicate with them how poorly their organization that I've been a member of for years and years. I was pro-life long before Missouri Right to Life got involved. And yet you make these accusations and you're doing these things that have nothing to do with that issue. I wish your members understood that. Thank you.
Senator Hoskins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now we brought up the heartbeat bill, and I thought I would never see that on this committee, at least from Republicans defending Planned Parenthood. The heartbeat bill, since Senator Serpoy brought up the heartbeat bill, yes, we all did vote for it. Our leadership, Republican, supposedly conservative leadership in the Senate, stood at ease so the Democrats and pro-choicers could try to browbeat Senator Koenig and Senator Onder into submission while we passed the heartbeat bill. Our leadership did not make the pro-choice stand up and filibuster like they made other conservatives stand up and filibuster to pass conservative things. Our leadership stood at ease so the Democrats would not have to filibuster so we could pass the heartbeat bill. Susan, I appreciate your testimony here today. I appreciate what Missouri Right to Life does. They're the pro-life voice of this state. I know we have many mimic organizations that try to come out and say, oh yeah, we're creating some new pro-life group or organization for campaign purposes, and that's disheartening. We've also heard that, hey, you're here for one sole issue. What issue could be more important than saving children and saving unborn babies? Somebody comment and tell me what issue could be greater than saving and protecting our children. We've also had comments that said, hey, give me, there's no help here in the state of Missouri. There is help here in the state of Missouri. And if any of you senators have questions on where your constituents or you need help, whether it's SNAP, whether it's anything else, I'd be glad to provide those phone numbers to you. Senator Williams, if I'd be glad to help, I'd be glad to help your constituents. Okay? Please give them my number. I'd be glad to help your constituents, Senator Williams. This whole committee hearing has gone downhill fast because one lady says that she's pro-life and would like to have pro-life language. I'm pro-life. I had some questions, but I kept it above board. But it dived down into doom and gloom and everything else. This is pathetic. This is pathetic. The accusations that have been made against our witness, accusations that have been made against our other fellow state senators, accusations that have been made against the pro-life community. It's sickening. Senator Rader.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have one question. Is Missouri Right to Life against in vitro?
Missouri Right to Life works to ensure that in vitro fertilization babies that are created and leftover embryos are protected.
Y'all do something with the babies that are, what do you mean?
Obviously, a lot of those families that have those leftover embryos are they're saving them for whenever they want to have a baby at a later time. So we're working to make sure that they have that opportunity and that those babies are not used for research.
Are y'all against tossing them away?
We would not support tossing a baby away once that baby has been created.
Okay, so y'all are against in vitro for the part that becomes waste?
No, that's not what I said. I said that we're against tossing a baby away once a baby has been created.
But isn't that what happens in vitro? For some of them, the ones that aren't implanted and that aren't saved, isn't there always in vitro? Isn't there other babies that aren't implanted or saved? I'm just asking, like, I've not heard you guys comment on this. And as we've discussed today, the pro-life, the one pro-life issue of infants, and I'm 100% pro-life. Everyone in my vote show that, but I've never heard you guys talk about what in vitro does, and if that's something that you guys are for or against.
We have taken positions on bills that deal with research. So,
but not the in vitro process.
That's not part of this bill. I'd be happy to talk to you about it, but that's not part of what we're talking about today.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any further questions, Senator Crawford?
I'll try to make it brief. Susan, you mentioned the Supreme Court case, and tell me one more time what you said about that. What did the court say?
The judges in discussion talked about if you want to stop money from going to abortion providers, abortion affiliates, then you need to put that guiding, that boundary language in statute. Those were discussions that were held in the courtroom
They did not
between the court, the judges, and the attorneys.
but they did not differentiate. They did not say you need to put it on this FRA bill. Is that correct? They just said put it in statute. Did they say it has to go on the FRA bill?
They said put it in statute.
So under that scenario, it should be the protection if we do it separately. Would that be accurate?
If it were actually put in statute and signed by the governor.
And you've already
passed.
said you would entertain that thought, so it sounds like we need to talk to the governor and see if that's a potential possibility, because they're not going to guarantee. Did the Supreme Court guarantee that we would be in compliance if we put it with the FRA bill? Did they mention that?
The attorneys did not address that
So
question with the court.
They didn't really care about that part of it. Would you agree with that?
I can't say what the judges, what their thoughts were.
But they did not address being in compliance or not being in compliance.
They led the attorneys to believe that if you put the language in statute to govern how this program works, whether that was in the FRA, whether that's in a separate bill. However, we saw in 2021 that the will of the body is not to pass, and we haven't done it since. I mean, we had 2022, we had 2023, and now we're in 2024, and we still haven't done it. So, pro-lifers begin to think that, are we going to do it? And do we believe that it could be done in a separate bill? Pro-lifers don't believe that right now, based on
So
the
I
history.
guess they live in the state of Missouri and they want us to show me. Is that it's a show me state? They want to see that. So I want to ask you again, if we pass that bill separately, separate from the FRA, will you let the FRA pass clean? Yes or no?
We will not.
Yes or no?
We will not accept what you call a clean FRA unless that language is in statute already. It's not that it's been passed by the House and the Senate and sitting on the governor's desk.
Did everybody
It's
hear
in
that?
its-
So that would. Well, actually, I don't know. I want to put you on record of saying, if you keep it separate, if we pass it in the House and the Senate and the governor signs it, and it goes into statute, you're going to back down on putting these billions of dollars at risk.
Those are hypothetical questions.
No,
as that
I
were
say
put
no.
before me.
I say no. I disagree with that.
We live in the show me state.
Well,
I'm not going to
you-
commit. I'm not going to make a statement on what Missouri Right to Life's position is going to be
So
until we
are you
actually
going to just keep
see.
moving the target? Is that what you're going to do?
We're asking for pro-life protective language.
And I've given you a potential way to get it without putting the FRA at risk. And I know you don't believe this, but I'm about as pro-life as they come. I just don't happen to believe that things like 7-1 maps have anything to do with pro-life. Just for the record, and Senator Searpoy, I would applaud your comments because this has gotten way out of hand. So how many pro-life bills do we have to pass before you'll leave the FRA alone? How many more? 1, 2, 5,
Senator,
10?
are you saying that we can't, as pro-life Missourians, come and ask you for pro-life protections?
Absolutely not.
Then that's what I'm doing
I
today.
would vote for that in statute, happily. I would happily vote for that.
I'm sitting here asking for pro-life protective language on the FRA. That's
so
where you're going to spend the
you're
money.
unwilling to move, unwilling to work, and so answer me this question: what's the value of an unborn child versus a person in a nursing home? What's the difference in the value of the life?
There is no difference. But what is the value of a life if you pass the FRA without pro-life protective language on it?
About 25,000 Missourians are going to be at risk. I believe we heard that. So are you willing to give up 25,000 Missourians for a pie in the sky when we've already determined that we are doing 0 abortions in the state of Missouri, which I'm totally for. I'm totally for that. But I think you're putting a lot of other lives at risk for something that is a fallacy. That's my opinion.
We disagree.
Well, it sounds like we disagree on a lot of things, but again, I just think your thinking is flawed, and you're picking 25,000 Missourians. You're putting them at risk over abortions that are not even happening in the state of Missouri. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any further questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
I'm just going to get a show of hands because this is going to determine what we're going to do next. How many people do we have still planning on testifying in opposition to the bill? Okay. How many for informational purposes? Perfect. Senator Hough, any concluding remarks?
No. Appreciate the time of the committee.
This
Thank
will
you.
conclude the hearing on Senate Bill 784. I now make a motion that we adjourn. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. We're adjourned.
You like that?